Okay, so today we are doing cognitive training, and the first paper will be on Portal 2 versus Glioma City. Yes, this is an, as you could see by the court case, there is, it is still controversial and still a discussion, and people, there is actually a big debate, particularly in games and ADHD or games and autism, whether or not you can actually affect cognitive structures by games and by training, right? Is working memory like height or like weight? Okay, so this is one of the things to think about for any of these cognitive training things, right? Is the thing you're trying to influence like weight or like height? If it's height, it's kind of stupid to try and influence it, right? Because it doesn't matter really what you're doing with going to the gym and exercising, you're not going to get taller.
With that attitude, you won't.
Oh, it's all the right. If I just willed it hard enough, I'd get taller. Whereas weight, we figure we can adjust by what we eat and how we exercise and other things, right? And so for cognitive training, there's also, is it like a muscle where you have to keep doing it to keep it fit? Or is it like weight, where if you are heavy and you lose a bunch of weight, you then get a new stable weight that you don't have to keep dieting to keep your weight down, you just have to not eat as much as you were, right? So is it a kind of, when we change now, do we change permanently? Or is this always going to go back to us being stupid and we constantly try and keep our brains active, but the moment we stop it, we're going to fall all the way back to being like stumbling morons? So yeah, it's an interesting, challenging area. So we'll have Anastasia presenting. And also, now you want to plug into, can we plug you into presentations? If we put you over here,
okay.
And we'll turn on, that's been on. So I will grab you. What do you have? You have HDMI. So plug you in there. Plug in there. And dunk. And it's recognized that it's plugged in. It's updating. Yep. And I will just point that a little bit that way so it can vaguely see you. Okay.
Yeah.
So, City.
Okay. But first, I would like to mention that I have no experience with this game, so it was challenging for me a little bit. But okay. This paper was telling us about two games, like trying to compare it. It was Portal 2 and Glioma City. Their article is like experimental research examining the relationships between video game play and cognitive and non-cognitive skills. 77 undergraduates took part in this experiment. They were randomly assigned to play either popular video game Portal 2 or brain training game Glioma City. They were playing like for 4 hours, like in 3 sessions, and also they have like pre and post tests after and before playing. And the paper contains short overview of Portal 2 and Glioma City and the hypothesis of research study and some results and discussion of it. What about Portal 2? It's a quite popular game. It's a 3D game. Players take a first-person role of challenge the game and explore and interact with the environment. The main goal of it is to get to an exit door by using a series of tools, like the primary tool is a gun, so you can create with it 2 portals and like to go through these portals. But also there are other tools like lasers and redirection cubes that have prismatic lenses that redirect lasers, so you can interact with environment, and like do whatever you want to get your goal. But that's a few things that this article tells us about this game. The next game is Glioma City. It's 2D game, and the key component of the Glioma City is like a set of training programs. It contains 32 games, and all that you can do is like only point and click, so there are no such variations of actions as you can do in Portal 2. This paper proposes us 3 constructs to examine these games, and also there is like the interesting thing about this paper. It's mostly tells us about Portal 2 and only a few words about Glioma City. So talking about these 3 contracts, the first one is problem solving skill. When Portal 2 provides a unique gameplay environment and can promote cognitive flexibility through multiple contextualized and signed problems that require players to creatively applying newly learned rules of tools. So you're just learning to find out a way. Special skills, you can improve it during this game to navigate through problems in a sophisticated way. And persistence, this game provides a gameplay environment that can potentially improve persistence because the game involves many challenges and you need to do it despite failure and frustration. Right. Also, it already gives us hypotheses without telling us almost nothing about tests, but already gives us hypotheses. It's based on the literature review of these 3 focal constructs, and it just gives us this. So Portal 2 outcome scores for problem solving, special skills and persistence will be comparable to the Glioma City, but it's already said us that Portal 2 is better than Glioma City. We have no proofs now, but it already said us that. Players in both the Portal 2 and Glioma City conditions will show improved pre-test and post-test gains related to both phases. So, but it's only hypothesis, it's not true. Players in Portal 2 will improve all 3 phases of special skills, while players in Glioma City will only improve 2 of them. In-game performance measures in Portal 2 and Glioma City will predict post-set scores in problem solving and special skills after controlling for pre-test scores.
So those are, in a sense, proper hypotheses, as in they are probably what they thought before they went in, right? So they've not been generated post hoc. They've not done the, we'll just go in and try some stuff, and then we'll generate our hypotheses once we've found the data, and then say that that's what we found is what we were looking for, right?
They actually didn't give us any like basics to think that Portal 2 is better. They just said that it's based on the literature review, and that's all.
Yeah. So I mean, you'd have to go and look at the literature that cited to see if that was right. But yeah. So these hypotheses, they are proper hypotheses in the sense that these were what they were thinking when they came in, right? And then they're going to test them and then report on what they found, right? And so there's basically 2 ways of doing science. One is this way, where you come up with some hypotheses, you test them and go, oh, well, I was wrong about that, I was wrong about that, I was right about that, right? Or there are some scientists who will go fishing, and what they'll do is they'll just record everything, and then after they've recorded everything, they'll go and look for correlations, and then say that those correlations were what they were looking for, right? Now the second type, generally are able to find a lot of correlations, right? And so they generate, they're very good at writing hypotheses because, they already know the outcomes before they get there. You also see this in like a trick for the beginner that some researchers use, and I've seen this in the US, they write grant proposals for the work they've just done. So what you do is you do a piece of research, you record everything, you work out that it works, and then you write a grant proposal to fund that. You use that grant proposal to do your next bit of research, and during that 3-year grant period, you release the results from the experiments you've already done. That way, you can hit your targets because you've already got the data, so you know what's going to work. And so you're really good at saying where you'll get to, because you already know what you're going to get to. Now, while you're doing that, like while you're releasing that data and releasing those papers, you are actually doing exploratory research where you have no idea whether it's going to work and like no idea what you're going to find. You record all of that, and having done all of that, you then write a proposal that explains all of this and asks for funding for it. So you're always asking for funding that you've already done the work for, and so you can predict your outcomes and be really good at getting funding and meeting targets. And yeah, it's a bit of a con though. so hypotheses are interesting. Like, so when they come up with hypotheses where, when you look later in the paper, they go, well, no, this wasn't what we found at all, which is nice because they do disprove some of these things. But continue.
Okay. What they have did, they gather 77 subjects between 18 and 22 years old. 33% of them were male and 57 were female. All subjects were randomly assigned to to different games, to Portal 2 and Glioma City, 32 to Portal 2 and 35 for Glioma City. They needed at least 34 per one game. And the interesting fact from them that after completing all parts of the study, subjects were given a gift card, $100. I don't know why they mentioned it, but it was like, I don't know.
So you are supposed to, in part of research ethics, is you're supposed to list all inducements. So anything which you give to your participants to encourage them to participate should be stated and stated clearly.
But they didn't state whether or not they was trying to offer it beforehand, or just a gift they gave after. And they didn't state whether or not the participants knew they were going to have the gift card. That's good to have something like that.
I think all the participants knew they were going to have a gift card. Actually, there is a good open debate around how you reward participants, right? So, because there is, and I've seen a couple of papers which I'd have to go and find the references for, but showing that giving the gift card before they start versus after they're finished changes people's responses, right? So if you had a gift card and you say, oh, you're going to participate in our study, here's the gift card, it's yours. Right. Now you can do the study. It's different to saying, if you complete the study, we'll give you $100.
Yeah.
Right? So apparently those are two psychologically different conditions that your participant is in, with one being the, I've got to get this right or they won't give me the $100, versus the, oh, you've already given me $100, so now I can just do whatever I like. And I think you guys could see how that could be cognitively different.
But they didn't give us like an explanation when they gave them these cards, no. And also it could influence the results of research, but we don't know it.
Well,
like,
it
influences the motivation of participants, so, but we don't know.
Yeah, but at least they listed it, and rather than keep it secret. So,
they have like 10 hours for all this research. 2 of these hours were like for pre-tests and post-tests, from 50 to 60 minutes per one, and they have 3 sessions, approximately for 3 hours, and across 1 or 2 weeks. The subjects were seated in small groups, about 3-4 participants per session, and also it was controlled groups. There were 2 people who could control the process, but they could not influence the process. They can just handle some technical issues, and they were not allowed to discuss the situations, the games, and so on. Yeah. Instruments. Now there is a long explanation which tests they will consist. They are like different tests for different constructs, like it was revenge progressive matrix for problem solving, inside test, remote association tests. I could like mention what it's mean a little bit. Just a second. Too much tests.
They tried to do a lot of different tests.
So the first one, RPM, it's like you need to match the missing piece from the other patterns given. So you need to find a missing part. Inside test was about to look different, like to use a different way to look at the object. The remote association test was about creating the keyword. You were given like 3 words, and you need to change them, to combine them, to achieve in result a keyword. About special cognition, that was mental rotation tests. They have 3-dimensional target figure and 4 test figures, and there were like 2 right answers. And the interesting thing about the next one test is that it's the 3D test, so virtual spatial navigation assessment, and I think it's not really fair to compare Lumicity and Portal 2, as Portal 2 is 3D game, and maybe it would be easier to pass these tests when you play 3D game, video game, but actually maybe the effect was not so significant. Picture comparison, it's simple to Lumicity, you just need to compare 2 pictures, and persistent self-report survey was consisting like 8 questions. Also, they were differently scaled. The Portal 2 was scaled negatively, so lower means better, and Lumicity was scaled positively, so higher means better. It's also like the way you can like, it depends on the way people think about it, so it also can change and influence the results. And also they mentioned that they before post test they asked participants if they enjoy playing these games, but they didn't give us the answer. You can just see the answer for this question only if you will read to the end of the article, so they didn't mention it here. And after all these they gave us a result, but maybe I was inattentive, but all of the numbers mentioned in text doesn't match these numbers in table. So I was really wondering where they took it, as I was faced with these numbers firstly, and they don't give us any formula, anything else to find out how they counted it. And I was trying just to find a number in a text and to find it in a table, but I didn't succeed in it. So they just said us, for example, for the problem-solving tests, results show that the Portal 2 inside post-tests was higher than the Lumicity post-test, and they give us number like 1.38 and 0.98. So you can't find these numbers here. Compare any way you like. But they give the explanations, and after all these tests, the results show that mostly for all tests, Portal 2 has highest better than Glioma City, but we can't like count it by ourselves, which we have no other choices. Believe them. Also the same thing with another table. They give us another numbers in the text, so we just can compare it only this. And after all these explanations, after all these numbers, they finally give us some compare about Portal 2 and Glioma City. And almost all of them says us that Portal 2 are better than Glioma City, but not all of the hypotheses are proved, because some tests didn't show the results, like there were almost no difference between pre-test and post-test results, so some of the skills you can't like make it better during these games, but they mentioned that people enjoy more playing Portal 2 than the Glioma City, indeed. And the criticism of the paper. It was really hard to read, because if you didn't face this topic early, it's very hard to understand it. Also when you can't find these numbers, and I have a feeling that this paper was written by the creators of Portal 2 to prove that it's better than Glioma City, because as for me it's hard to compare 3D game and 2D game, because it's really challenging to spend 3 hours playing Glioma City. You need to be concentrate each minute, like it's very I can show, I guess. I don't know if everyone were playing this game or not.
Who has played on the Glioma City website based on the game?
On the website or on the app?
Or the app, yeah.
So you just click and that's all.
And you know what this is? This is the
Wrong.
Stroop test. It's a standard cognitive test for inhibition and executive control, right? Because your brain tells you to click the so when it sees the color and the word are appeared in the brain, and so you have to inhibit the word processing to click just the color. So it's a standard psychological test.
Yeah, and you need to be concentrate on it. You can't just drink your morning coffee and play this game if you want to get some score, but I think it's quite possible to play the Portal 2 for 3 hours. It's more interesting, and it's also like it was a reason for me why we can't compare these games.
So yes, Glioma City is far more like a cognitive test than a game. They feel like you're doing cognitive tests.
Also, there is some strange structure of the article, because it's telling like we have different parts of it, and if parts 4 telling us about the results, about table 1, but table 1 is meshed in part 3, so it's not where it should be.
You're jumping back and forth.
Yeah.
I'm afraid that's also what LaTeX will do to you, and any publishing into a print journal media will force you to be jumping around. It used to be far worse, where all of the tables and figures would be in the centre of the book, on the set of colour slides in the centre of the book, and all the text was throughout the rest of the book. That was when it was really bad. And I've got a couple of articles in those sort of journals, and that's really annoying. Yeah.
So it was challenging, and also I was confused with these numbers, and about the game process, about playing. I think that the Portal 2 shows better results because you can adapt to the rules to the interface very quickly, and while you're playing Glioma City, you need to adapt to new rules to new game like each 10 or 15 minutes, so you just have no time to think about your knowledges. You're just doing it, and you can like benefit from it.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Good discussion, Resh. The challenge. So you mentioned some challenges. What are the other challenges people saw in this paper? And Mahesh, what you can lead the debate on the challenges that you saw.
For me, I think the participants were quite low, but they kind of said that they only needed 34 in each group with a power level of 0.90.
So have you had power levels explained to you guys?
No, I have to share that.
Okay, so understanding power level is related to what you can say, right? So, for example, if I was measuring height and I wanted to measure the difference between men and women, how many men and women I'd need to measure would relate to how big a difference there is between men and women, right? So if there was only like if there was a 1 centimeter difference between men and women, right, that I was trying to detect, and the variation within people was quite high, to detect that variation I need a lot of people, right? So I need a high power level to measure a small difference. If I think a difference is large, then I need fewer people, right? So for the effect they were trying to measure, they decided that, well, they did an estimation saying, well, if I'm measuring things in this range and I'm trying to find this large an effect, I need about this many people, right? So yeah, so the amount that they wanted to try and detect meant that they would be okay with about 30 in each. So
they have like 27 dropouts.
Yep.
From their first test, and they don't mention it in the paper afterwards, like what effect that has anywhere else.
They have only good results.
Yeah, so the people that drop out are a very interesting category, right? And it's something that you guys should mention, and this is a failing, is they didn't really go into, is there likely to be something about that the people that drop out of these studies that is systematically different, right? Because part of the assumption is, and as you'll see this, is that they assume the people who are dropping out are a random sample of the people, right? So if you take a random sample of people, right, and then I look at people turning up, or people's height, right, and then I measure that against. I'd like to get an independent variable, but if you initially said hair color, right, you might say, well, okay, it's pretty evenly distributed. There isn't really anything here, right? That is correlated between people being tall and their hair colors, right? So if I enrolled you guys in a bunch of studies and I measured your heights, and then 2 years later I saw who was still in the course, right? I would assume that the heights of the people who had dropped out were similar to the heights of the people who had stayed, right? Because I wouldn't assume that there was something specifically about your height that would mean you'd be better at university or not, right? You could try and make that assumption. What's crazy, and I think you'd find that definitely here in Norway, is that if I measure a class and I've got a bunch of Norwegians, 2 years later, the Norwegians are more likely to stay because they live in Norway, and so the international students, who are on average shorter than the Norwegians, will mean that when I actually look at a 1 year or 2 year follow-up on the class that happened to be here versus the people who are still here, I think height would be a determining factor. Partly because the short people are more likely to leave because they were the international people, right? So you will find correlations because there are these kind of underlying systematic differences. It may be that the people who drop out are systematically different to the people who stay in. And unless you can kind of try and work out if that's true, then yes, you may be missing something significant in your data, right? And we just don't really know.
We also doesn't know which category they were in before they dropped out, because not everyone dropped out after first session.
No.
Someone dropped out later.
Yeah.
Because after first session, at least they haven't done anything in the experiment yet. They've just like been done pre-testing.
Yeah. But no, so it'd be nice to know
Why?
why. It's what we also do at university. We try and figure out why you guys leave a degree program, right? So one of the things we look at is we have a bunch of students arrive, like 20% of them leave after first year, or 30% leave after first year. What happened? Why did they leave? Why did they fail? What was going on? We would like to know those so we could change that, right? But it's really hard to get to those people because they've gone, right? It's not like they're here that you can talk to them. So that's it. There are challenges in finding out why people have left, unless you can coerce them into giving you answers, which is tricky, and you can't always believe what they tell you anyway, right? Because they just want you to go away. Yep. Okay. So that was so yes, the people that left, they didn't really state much about that.
Also, they have like they discarded some people because they have some motion sickness or something. So they just
In a Portal 2, yes, because the first-person shooter.
Also, that you have to bullet portal it as well. That is extra.
The portaling could also give you some induced motion issues. Yep. Again, from other research, you find that it's usually women who are more susceptible to motion sickness from games than men. Women in general get more motion sickness than men, just in the population, right? So if you actually measure this across the population, women are more likely to get visually induced motion sickness in cars and things. And so yes, the people who dropped out could also be a particular group of people. Again, could be correlated. We don't really know if that has a major effect, but yeah.
Most of the time they said they adjusted their reliability, but sometimes they do at 90, 0.090, sometimes 0.80. Like they don't have a similar reliability scale in every kind of test.
Do you have a reason? I have a reason for that, but can you think of the reason why they do that?
I don't know.
Isn't that so? That's the reliability of the different tests, right? So they're not their numbers; they're the numbers of the actual tests.
Yeah.
And they provide they can have different reliability.
Yeah.
But they adjusted later.
So one is the reliability of particular tests and how reliable they are at measuring something, and so there's reliability and repeatability. You'll also find, and you'll find this in many papers, is they'll talk about confidence levels as well, right? So they'll talk about 0.9 or 0.95 confidence levels. And usually when somebody drops down to 0.9, it's because it's not significant to 0.95, but it is significant to 0.9, right? So it's a bit like saying, you know, if I say to you, three of the top 4 cross-country skiers were Norwegian, right? You can pretty much guarantee that 4th place was a Norwegian. Because if I say 3 of the top 4, it would be silly of me to say 3 of the top 4 if the top 3 were all Norwegian, right? Because otherwise I would have said the top 3 were all Norwegian, rather than 3 of the top 4, which means the 4th person pretty much has to have been a Norwegian, because I never would have said it at that lower confidence level, right?
So that if seems a bit more, what is the word? Not that impressive, yes.
Yes. So usually you're making a statement to say something impressive, and if you could make a more impressive statement, you'd make that more impressive statement. So when I'm talking about confidence intervals, if I can say it's significant to 0.95, I would say that over 0.9, right? So to some extent, unless they've picked something beforehand, previously pick a confidence and just stuck with it, then they'll try and make the most impressive statement they can. So so you will get this change in what level they'll be discussing, based on the most significant thing they can say. Yeah.
Also, in one of the tests, they removed the pictures because it was impossible, as they say, and they don't say how that affects the test or something like that. They just removed it because it was difficult for participants.
Yep.
Yes, and they didn't mention some part of results at all because they failed with it.
Yeah, they just
Skip it.
yeah. We just won't talk about it. Yeah. So again, this is a problem with publication. So I mentioned last week the whole not talking about things that you don't find, right? So luckily they found something, so it's published, and you can see that they had hypotheses that didn't work or that weren't valid, and some results which were just we'll just ignore those because they don't show anything interesting. If you only had a paper that had results that weren't interesting, if you then didn't publish that paper, you would get a skewed view of how this works, because it's useful to see when things don't work, because that might also be useful information. So at least it is published and it's there, rather than them just culling all of their data and culling what they were what they could have done, right? Which they didn't do, was to at the end of the paper go back and look at the things that were useful, and then just remove all the tests that weren't useful, and then just say, oh, we did these 3 tests, they showed we were wonderful. Right? Because that would be entirely possible to do. Because how would we know that they'd actually done 10 tests? Unless they told us. Right? So, but that would be unethical to do. Right? It would be unethical to go and alter saying what you've done just to say, oh, we only did these 3. Right? Or you wouldn't even need to say we only did these 3. If you wouldn't be technically lying if you just said, we did these 3 tests and they showed significance. Right? It's a lie by omission to say, oh, actually we did 10 and 7 of them showed no difference, or 3 of them showed that Glioma City was better, 3 of them showed Portal were better, but we're only showing you the 3 that showed Portal were better. Right? That would be completely unethical to do. But it's hard to know when someone has done that, right? Because they need only show you their results. Right? And part of the whole registering with the clinical trials idea is that you are supposed to register with the clinical trials before you start. So the idea is that you say everything you're going to test, and you say all your process before you start, so that when you publish, people can see what you said you were going to test and what you had intended to do, and then see if you actually followed through and published it, right? Rather than register at the end of the process, once you've found the ones that suit your particular objective. Right? And it is honestly a big problem in science that we don't have enough of this pre-registering what people are intending to do before they do it, so that we can see actually have they manipulated things, have they picked and have they cherry-picked the bits that they wanted to suit themselves and suit their particular hypothesis. Now, I disagree with you that this wasn't written by the people who developed Portal, because people who develop Portal really don't care. However, this is probably done by a fan of Portal, who really likes Portal and looks at Glioma City and say, well, that's shit. I'm sure the game that I like playing is far better than that terrible game that my mum keeps telling me to play because it will make me better. So yeah, it could be fanboy.
I can just note that it's interesting that they're sort of changing how they're discriminating against people from the different games. Because, well, first of all, they're not saying that they're eliminating people who have played Portal 1. And that was a pretty popular game, so there's a fair chance that if you're interested in video games, you might have sort of played it. Although they did exclude people who played video games daily, they never say that they didn't eliminate people who played Glioma City daily. We're not given any information about that at all.
No.
And also, we're not told how the people were recruited. So if you're saying like, yeah, we're looking at different games and how they help you learn, suddenly you got all the game interested people, and then they're self-recruiting.
Well, did they say that they posted flyers all over
Yeah,
the internet? I mean,
what did the flyers say?
Yeah,
I mean,
on the flyers. And
If
so
the flyer basically just, hey, you want to be part of a research project? Sure, that's, fine. But if it's like, want to be part of the research project that compares different ways of learning. Also, how do they control that people weren't talking to each other, etc.?
And given that they look like they're university students and and probably are going if they're gamers, they may well be from the same degree. And yes, how you recruit in this particular thing, maybe that if we and as you said, they excluded gamers who had played Portal 2 before, but not all gamers. They tried to try and limit it down, but if you recruit people saying we're interested in how games teach you to learn, right, you might get more gamers in your group, right, than you would expect from the normal population. So it kind of, it modifies what you can say in your conclusion.
So I'm just thinking a bit about the portal itself, because they didn't state what levels they played, because you have the possibility to do the single player, which I assume they did the single player, rather than they went to the workshop and downloaded 40 different rooms and tested them and quality assured them and everything. And if they did the single player, I don't understand why they did Portal 2 instead of Portal 1, because Portal 2 have a lot more story in between the different levels, which is, since they had a limited amount of time, I would say that Portal 1 would be much better there, because it's much more streamlined and levels, and then the big fights in the finale.
So I know, I also have, and we're getting close to time, but one of the biggest challenges I have with comparing Portal 2 and Glioma City is kind of what you were saying, which is the Portal 2, to some extent, 8 to 20, somewhere between 8 and 20 hours is probably the amount of time you would spend playing Portal and doing the single player stuff, right? Glioma City isn't designed for you to complete in 8 hours, right? It's a bit like comparing, a 3-course meal that you have all at once with having a chocolate bar once a day over 6 months, right? And then asking after 2 days, how full are you? Well, the 3-course meal, I was really full. It's great. I had 1 chocolate bar, 1 chocolate. Okay, I'm not very full.
It also, Portal is a focused experience on one particular thing, and sure, it gets novel after a while, or it adds stuff to stay novel, but it's still the same concept. So you're still just doing one thing. It's just they add a bit more extra, but the line of thought is still the same.
And just one other thing is that they stated that the in-game measurement of Portal 2, they say that the average Portal shots, less is better. Because unless they explicitly ask them to do as few Portal shots as possible. I mean, the whole game theme is Portal. It's fun to play with portals.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's just
Also,
fun to play.
I play Portal. I shoot portals all the time because I'm doing that while I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, I can try it that way, and then you place one, and then just as you're about to place the other, you go, oh shit,
no,
that
that
won't
won't
work,
work.
and then you
Yeah.
go and place the first one again. So
Yes.
less is better. I mean, that depends on how you're sort of defining better.
Yes, and personally I find the sound of shooting portals soothing, so I just shoot it all the time because I feel it helps me think.
Yeah, and you're constantly going around just shooting one on the ground and one on the roof. Just move a bit faster, or just think.
Get another view of the map or anything. So I found that quite strange. And unless they explicitly said that you're supposed to use as few portal shots as possible.
Also.
Yeah, no, it's not as bad as the students I was talking to when I first started teaching in Norway, in Rena, and it was a student came up from Agder, and he said in their course, fewer commits were better into the repo. And I was going, wait a minute, no, that's not a good measure of if you're good at coding, fewer commits.
Also, let's not rebase to just totally change that. So I did everything in one commit.
Yeah, no, but they had a fewer commits as better mode, which I think is
Also, how
crazy.
did you get all those in-game measures?
They said a log file, but I haven't researched whether or not that's accessible. So
Because usually problem we don't know.
Yeah. Again, though I think you can get access to some of the log files around portal shops and things. So yeah. And so, final thoughts?
You say the creators of Portal 2 didn't care, but why?
Well, they don't care about the cognitive benefit of their game, because they didn't do it as a cognitive training game. They did it as something to make money, right? And it made money.
Yeah.
So
it's an entertainment product.
Yeah, it's an entertainment product. It's you know, their goal is to make money out of entertainment. So the Marvel Comics people, right, making Black Panther, probably don't really care too much about its commentary on black women necessarily, because you know their primary goal is to make money by having an action thing, right? So it's just kind of.
Also, you can't think of it sort of like backwards in time, because it might be that if they came out with Portal 3, they would suddenly think a bit more about it, because you know, like that's the chance of that happening, but they weren't like probably not thinking about it before.
Yeah. So it's more that rather than I suppose rather than say not caring, they're happy that it shows off, but you know they didn't do it with that intent, right? So it'd be a bit like making chocolate and then suddenly finding out that chocolate is healthy for your heart. It's kind of excellent. Like now we can use that. Yes, that's why we made chocolate. Yes, it's because we worked out it was healthy for your heart. No, you made chocolate because people would buy chocolate. So no, it's that kind of finding a candy is happens to be good for you isn't what the candy manufacturers were thinking when they made it.
Final thoughts?
Final thoughts?
Firstly, read the name of the paper. I thought that they were like comparing two games, but actually I have a feeling that it was just created to show how Portal 2 is good, and I really doubt that all the tests and results were quite good to compare these two games. And also the Tetris was mentioned a few times in this paper, so I don't think they really care which game to choose to compare to Portal 2. So I don't really think we can trust the results of this paper. So we can't, we have no good explanations, no good numbers, no formulas to to prove it by ourselves, or just to try to renew this test. So I don't really think we could trust this paper, and it can be like it's not enough only this paper to understand the whole thing. You should read mostly all of reference, and it's not enough. It's just this paper to understand all these games.
What's going on? Yep. Any other thoughts? Nope. Okay, we'll take a 10-minute break, and we'll come back and we'll discuss the Glioma City paper. I'll pause. I can probably pause this. We'll stop this and start again with the second part. Do we have anybody online currently?
I don't think it was.
It usually happens